FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
Welcome all. You are listening to the Financial Survival Network, and it's time for another Triple Lutz report. And this will be episode number 474. I haven't done one in a while. Thought it would be a good time to catch up now. Well, first, we got to go look at this impeachment madness. I have said from the get-go, there's no way they're getting Trump out this way. It's just never going to happen. Now, the deep state obviously is feeling the pressure. They're feeling the heat. And this is the last-ditch effort to get rid of Trump, to ditch him, as it were, no pun intended, and it's just not going to work. It has already failed. I don't want to go into all the intricacies of Schiff's lies and Jerry Nadler's lies. I think the funny thing is that Jerry Nadler from New York, I followed this doofus for a lifetime. I won't get into his gigundo appearance, his failed bariatric surgery, laparoscopic band, whatever they've used to try to get that guy down to a normal size. It's been a dismal failure. The guy basically wears his pants pretty close to his chin. He's in bad health. You just have to look at his color and his eyes to know. He practically died on TV a while back when Comrade Bill de Blasio had to pour water down his throat in an effort to revive him. The guy is a joke. He's never been very bright. The Nadler hearings are going to be the Schiff hearings without Schiff's intelligence and charm. This thing is going to fail like you can't believe. This is just the way it's going to happen here, I'm telling you. I've seen this before. I've seen this play. Jerry Nadler is an incompetent boob who is pretty dumb overall. And like I say, impeachment doomed to fail. It's not going anywhere. If they send it to the Senate, it will be the biggest mistake that the Democrats have ever made because they're opening up Pandora's box. At that point, Comey can be forced to testify, Brennan, Clapper, all of these guys who are in on the plot to try to take out Trump. Schiff can be forced to testify, and the other one, the so-called whistleblower, whatever his name is, Eric CIA, I think they call him, he can be forced, as well as all these other deep state denizens can all be forced to testify. Now you have to wonder, why has Lindsey Grahamnesty not opened hearings into this prior? Was he holding off because they're waiting for the Horowitz report and Durham? I don't know. I don't have any great hopes that the Horowitz report is going to really nail these people and really call out the guilty parties. I think they're looking for scapegoats. The leaks, the so-called leaks are coming from the Washington Post and the New York Times. Now, the Washington Post is the official newspaper of record for the CIA. This is documented over time and time again. The CIA, they're the ones who, are calling the shots at the Washington Post and most of the media in the country. FBI, DOJ are the ones who call the shots for the New York Times. They plant the stories. Most of these stories are planted. So right now they're saying that Barr is having a big dispute with IG Horowitz because IG Horowitz is not calling out the political corruption, the conspiring of the intelligence agencies, utilizing spies to approach the Trump campaign. Could be disinformation and an effort to discredit the eventual report that's issued saying, well, Horowitz wanted to tell the real story, but Barr put his 2 cents in, and that's why we've got a corrupt report. We're not going to know that till we see it, but I'm very mindful and suspicious. As much as I would love for everything that QAnon says to be true, you got to be skeptical because it's happened at such a slow rate. No, I don't think Epstein killed himself. Quite obviously a murder, no question about it. If Baden, the celebrity forensic pathologist to the stars, if he says it was murder, I believe it. And several other famous forensic pathologists have come out and said the same thing. For sure, he's murdered, and in an effort to keep all this stuff silent. Where it's going to head, I don't know. But this impeachment insanity gets stepped up 5 notches this week when Jerry Nadler holds his kangaroo court hearings, for sure. So that's what we have to look at. Now, one thing I want to address is the Democratic campaigns taking place for so-called president. And none of these candidates are legitimate candidates, as best as I can tell. They all have major faults that will eventually lead to their failure. So it seems to me that what this is about is getting to a brokered convention. Then the real candidate, the one that the elites will fall in behind, will come out from behind the curtain. Now, is it Hillary Clinton? I tend to doubt it. Michelle Obama? I doubt it. I don't think she wants back in the White House. I think she hated every minute that she was there and would prefer to never go back to the place if she could. So that leaves us several other possibilities. It's got to be a moderate. You're not going to elect one of these radical, to the left, insane Bernie types, Elizabeth Warren, all of them. None of them are electable. None of them. Hickenlooper probably was as electable a candidate as they could get, but nobody's going to vote for a guy named Hickenlooper to be president of the United States. It's just not going to happen. So, like in the Republican campaign of 2016, until Trump got in, most of the candidates for president were there at the behest of the Jeb ! Bush campaign to split up the vote, because at the time they thought that Scott Walker would be the most likely candidate, and no one in this country wanted another Bush to run for president. Nobody wanted him. And what happened? So they get all these marginal candidates in who can only take a few percent of the vote, and then in the early contest, the early primaries, they get a few percent. They stop Walker from winning and enabled Jeb to take the lead with about a third of the vote. And Donald Trump upset that. So many of these candidates, maybe not Chris Christie, but the other guys in there, I don't even remember who they were being paid, they were being financed, like Carly Fiorina and little Marco Rubio. They were being financed by Jeb's people to split the vote. And probably little Marco would have been the vice presidential nominee. But then came Trump, and he blew everybody out of the water. Like Lindsey Graham was never going to even get close to being president. He was just there at the behest of the deep state of Bush to split the vote. So that's what they're doing here. In effect, what they're doing is making all of the Democratic primaries not matter, because anyone who wins will not be able to win for president. And then effectively they will be forcing the party elite to choose the candidate in the convention. I can't say this is for certain, but I really do believe it. I was interviewed on Fox and Friends a while ago, and they said, "What do you think of the candidates after the debate?" And I basically said that none of them were qualified to wash the toilets, to clean the toilets in Trump Tower. They were all incompetents, liars, inauthentic, and incompetent. Look at Joe Biden. Joe Biden is a placeholder. This guy is not a serious candidate. He can't stop talking about groping kids and smelling hair, biting his wife's finger while she's talking. I mean, the guy is just losing it. And he's always been a moron, stupid, a buffoon, and just someone not to be taken seriously. But this is the beauty of the Democratic Party. Because they're so politically correct, they can't say, this guy is old, he's senile or getting senile. We can't afford to have him as president. Get rid of him. He can't do it. They have to treat every candidate as if they're a serious candidate. This is the fallacy of political correctness, because if you're not politically correct, you could say Kamala Harris bombed. She doesn't connect. She's arrogant. She has this horrible way of speaking, and she just panders, as do all the others. The only one who speaks with any conviction and true conviction is Bernie. And I think Bernie is just running to get another house. Like, he got paid off last time by Hillary. To support her, you'll get a house and everyone will be happy. And if you don't like it, well, here's a couple punches to the head. So you better come see it our way, Bernie. But none of them are real candidates. Joe Biden, the placeholder, so that when we get to the convention, Joe Biden can have a breakdown. He can have a physical, mental breakdown, whatever. He's removed. It's a locked up convention. After the first ballot, then all the delegates are free to vote their conscience, which, Democratic convention, delegates, conscience, they're very loosely connected. In fact, there's no relation whatsoever, because being a Democratic politician means never having to have a conscience. So this is what's going to happen. Now, look, you could say, I don't believe him. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Well, I will tell you this. I was one of a handful of, I don't consider myself a pundit, but perhaps a minor media personality. I was one of the only ones to say on July 15th of 2015 or July 17th that Trump was going to be the next president. I stuck with it for the entire course of the election, said that the polls were rigged and they had no validity, no meaning. All these polls now are rigged as well. Let's not forget that. Joe Biden is just he's a Trojan horse. All of them are Trojan horses to some extent. But as one starts to take the lead, then their heroic fault comes to the surface, and then they are basically marginalized. First it was Cammie, then it was Elizabeth Warren. She had her run. Biden, he's still kind of in the top, but only according to these rigged polls. And because the polls, what choice do you have? If you're not a crazy leftist ideologue, you really don't have any choice but Biden. There's no real moderates. Pete Buddha, he'll have his run in the sun, and then he'll be done. Bloomberg, you cannot take him seriously. He's a gun grabber, micromanager, nanny stater, and look, half the country wants their guns. Half the country is not going to vote for him. And then, he's just arrogant. His last election, he spent about $100 per vote, third election to become mayor of New York. If he spends $100 a vote to win, he needs 65 million votes. It will cost him $6.5 billion. He's got a couple of kids, a daughter, I think maybe only one kid. I've met him before, a nice guy in person, but he has no prayer. And the same with Steyer. So the real candidate, hasn't yet emerged. I just can't wrap my arms around it being Hillary Clinton, but it's always possible because Hillary could not win the primaries this time. She could not get the nomination through the primary process. Maybe it's going to be at the convention when it's a brokered convention, but brokered conventions, very difficult to get the resulting candidate into office, get them elected, because they're so undemocratic by their nature. But there was a time when the bosses picked the candidates, and I think we were a better country when that happened for a lot of reasons that I won't go into now.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next.
Silver One Resources is an exploration and development company backed by strategic investors Eric Sprott and SSR Mining. The company is focused on its Candelaria mine project in Nevada, where there is already a historic resource estimated at 127 million ounces of silver. The Candelaria mine historically was the highest grade silver producer in Nevada, generating over 68 million ounces of silver at an amazing average production rate of over 1,250 grams per ton. The project has tremendous expansion potential, as past drilling has outlined outline deeper, high-grade silver targets for future drill programs. Silver One is highly leveraged to the price of silver and is cashed up and poised to increase shareholder value. Silver One trades in New York under the ticker SLVRF and in Toronto under the ticker SVE. To learn more, go to silverone.com. That's silverone.com.
The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
Now, China trade war. I've been saying, one other thing about my prognostication abilities. Back when Trump was elected, I said the wall will be built. I didn't know when, but I believed that it would be built. But I said, more importantly, what is going to happen is the Mexican government will station troops on the U.S. border to keep the interlopers out. Now, that was like an off-the-wall prediction. I've not heard one person make that call. I was the only one that made it. And sure enough, 2.5, 3 years later, where's the Mexican government? They're blocking the borders, reducing the flow of refugees, so-called refugees, illegal immigrants, border hoppers, whatever you want to call them. Right? So that's where I'm coming from. I make these calls based on facts, and then I throw it to my intuition. And generally, the intuition is always 90% of the time right. So I've been made plenty of wrong calls. Don't get me wrong. I never believed that Obama could get elected. But, 8 years of Bush, the country would have elected anybody with a D next to their name, even Hillary. So she blew her chance for sure. So China trade war. I've said for quite some time that the key to the China trade war is Hong Kong. The reason why China has not invaded Hong Kong and boldly put down the rebellion, it's quite simple. It will be the end of their trade talks and trading partnership with the West. They need the West dollars to finance all their ambitions of world domination, Asian domination. And Trump, the argument's been made that he wants to disengage from China. And I question whether that was true or whether he wanted a trade deal or not. Now we see Congress passed 2 resolutions condemning the People's Republic of China for its handling of the Hong Kong rebellion, and Trump signed them. Now, if he really wanted a deal, the one thing the Chinese do not appreciate is loss of face. They can't take any public criticism of their oppressive policies. So by Trump signing on to those resolutions, those bills, which have minor sanctions attached to them, really aren't going to make a difference. That was his signal that we're through with China. So what's happening? It was a delayed response, took 2 days, but gold today is way, way up. It was up like $18 the ounce. They're whittling it down. Silver up 25 cents the ounce. They will knock it down till after trade on the COMEX closes, and then it will go higher. I think we are going to see, and I won't swear to it, the fourth quarter, early first quarter gold rally that we've come to expect. If that's the case, you could see these gold stocks go way, way higher. Now, we had a decline in gold stocks, decline in gold prices. Gold is down like $30, $40 from a month ago. And the stocks took a hit, but they had higher lows. Stocks that I follow all are trading higher than their lows from before the gold rally. That to me was the indication that we hit resistance. If it's not this week, it'll be next week or the week after. You can look forward to this gold rally. I don't claim to be a major stock analyst or gold analyst. There are people that do it a lot better than me, but the trading patterns have just changed ever so slightly. It's kind of like watching the tide change. When low tide goes all the way out and the beach is real wide, and then very subtly high tide starts coming in. And that's what we're seeing here now. So seeing gold break that 1550 resistance point, it's very likely, because the resistance has been on the low side, 1450. That's resistance. And on the high side, 1550. And that's $100 channel that's been taking place with gold since since it kind of finished the first leg of its rally. So if we see 1550 break, I think we could see gold conceivably break 1600 for the end of the year. Anything's possible. Look, also have weak light trading days for December, for late December. It's not real hard to push it back down. But if a lot of buying comes to the surface from the Far East, we could easily see 1600 broken, maybe hit 1700. Because if it breaks 1550, it will very quickly rise above 1600. The only thing is, will it break 1700 before the end of the year, or will it wait till January, February? You know, you can look for more or less the rally to end on or about February 28th. That's generally where they do. They start generally December 15th, but my feeling is it could easily come early before that. You know, I'm doing this right now. It's December 3rd. So you take your pick. You let me know what you think. Questions, comments, kl@kerrylutz.com. Twitter feed @KerryLutz. Facebook page is Financial Survival Network. Visit our website, financialsurvivalnetwork.com, and join our mailing list. Get our newsletter. Stay tuned. Very exciting times. There's a lot going on. You need to be ready for it now, because once it starts, you're going to just be blown away. It'll be very hard to act once you're swept up in the emotions. Anyway, that's it. Been another Triple Lutz report. This is Kerry Lutz signing off.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.